And now in this part of the show, the geopolitical battle for Asia, particularly China, which has all sorts of overseas plans for growth. Now it's managing its slowdown at home. For one, it's been trying to attract APEC members to a new regional trading bloc after the US excluded it from its Trans-Pacific Partnership. But wider than that, Beijing plans to spend $1.25 trillion overseas over the next 10 years. And perhaps nothing underlines its ambition more than this. It is a plan to revive the old Silk Route, a rail line from inner China to Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and sea lines as well with that. Beijing has also established a $50 billion Asian infrastructure investment bank. And during the APEC summit near Beijing, China debuted its new stealth fighter, the J-31, at the Zhuhai Air Show. Just a little timely reminder about military strength, too. Well, let's bring in Jonathan Fenby. He's the Managing Director of China Research at the consulting group Trusted Sources. Jonathan, good to have you with us. Can I just get a quick thought to start with on another China issue, and that is climate change, the deal it announced with the US. I mean, aside from the actual deal and the targets, the fact that the US are cooperating so much after the APEC summit, I mean, they were really playing nice, weren't they?
Yes, certainly on the environment, on the climate change, this is an important agreement if it is put into effect and implemented as set out. I mean, China has undertaken for the first time to cap emissions, but the date is 2030. So that's a long way ahead. There's a lot of water under the bridge before then. And in a sense, I mean, I don't want to downgrade this because it is very important. The environment is one of those issues on which Washington and Beijing can reach agreement, at least in principle, as to what they want to do. A lot of other issues which came up at the APEC summit and around it are much less easy and much somewhat shorter term, and therefore actually more difficult to make progress on.
OK, then, let's pick up on one of those issues, the so-called TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which China has been excluded from. And yet, President Obama is saying, we're not trying to contain Beijing here. So why has it been left out?
Well, the rules set up for the TPP basically would exclude an economy like China's, where you have a lot of state intervention in the economy, a big public sector, a lot of controls, currency controls, controlled financial markets, and so on. So from those points of view, China has been excluded. Now, the Americans say this is because they want, as it were, like-minded nations to join to make the TPP into a success. If you're looking at it from China's point of view, of course, it's very easy to say, well, from the strategic point of view, here we've got a big American fleet in the south of Japan and the island chain running down from Okinawa, where that fleet is, through Taiwan to the Philippines. That strategically, in a sense, cuts off China on its eastern coast. And now we've got this trade deal, they might say, in which Washington is trying to line up a dozen other countries in an organization from which we'll be excluded, and which, according to some projections, could cost us up to $100 billion in trade each year. So you can see that China doesn't like the TPP. It sees it as a hostile element, and it wants a much easier, more relaxed free trade zone to come into being in the Pacific, in which it will be able to take place. So you've got definitely battle lines drawn on the trade front there.
OK, so we've talked about China and the US. There is China with the rest of the region. What about China on its own? I mean, it has got all this cash sitting there. What is it going to do with it? It talks about going on a spending spree of $1 trillion. What's it going to do?
Certainly there's going to be big outward investment. We've already seen that from China into, first of all, into resources in Africa, above all, but also in Latin America, also in Canada, in Australia, and elsewhere. Now China is moving into wanting to buy companies around the world, particularly in the West. For instance, in France, just this week, the top bidder for the airport outside the city of Bordeaux, which is being privatized, is a Chinese consortium. So, yes, the outward investment is going to continue and will be greater probably than investment into China over the coming years, but we're going to run into some political problems along the way.
And then this idea of reviving the old Silk Road, I mean, is that doable? What do you think?
The Silk Road it's a nice idea. To some extent, it is being put into place. For instance, China has moved into Central Asia in quite a big way. It has also developed, of course, what's called the Maritime Silk Road, which is ports all the way around to the Gulf to protect oil supplies, but also to have a Chinese presence there. But perhaps most interesting and most important in this has been the rapprochement between China and Russia, which we've seen this year, which was characterized in the huge gas deal that was done for supplies of Russian gas to China, and is now being followed by other projects, including a railway line from Western China through Central Asia and Russia to reach the North Sea, which will be much quicker and cheaper for exports than sending them by sea. China is projecting its power, is projecting its influence. Xi Jinping is arguably the most powerful leader on the planet at the moment, and he's not a man to adopt a low profile. The old saying used to be in China, to hide your brilliance until the time comes to show it. And I think for Xi, the time has come to show it.